Hey everybody, and welcome back. My name is Sue and I am from OML Embroidery, and today we're going to keep going with our little baby steps of connections, and we're going to talk about stripes today, which is awesome. So welcome everyone. Robin is looking to buy Floriani thread, and I think it was Alicia who suggested getting a pack. That's what I would do as well. However, the conversation has been to all the fancy threads, and I think I just saw, was it Judy Quilt, saying that there was a Halloween combo of twisted thread. Well, y'all know I'm going to be checking that out because that's awesome. The Soon mixed rayon thread, I do not, but I'm going to check it out. I have a wonderful supply of variegated thread, which I absolutely adore. That made me so happy. But I'm going to check out and see what it is. You know, why not? So, welcome everyone. Like I said, a lot of our good embroidery friends are here today. Gail, Robin, what's that guy? Don Brown. Alicia, Judy Quilt, Lise, Cindy West, Phyllis Thompson. It's nice to see everyone. Chris Yost, hello. It's nice to see everyone. So remember, new format, and today I'm using Wilcom E4. Wilcom E4.5, I guess it is. It is probably the software that we use the most because we do run an embroidery business and we're doing a lot of commercial work, so that's what I use. If I'm doing anything else, I use the Perfect Embroidery Professional. If I'm sorting through something to send to the machines, I use PEDesign, which is super handy. If I'm on a laptop, I use Embrilliance because it's Mac and it works so perfectly. And who am I forgetting? What software? Embird I'm not really using anymore, but I did use it for about 10 years. But this is my stash. So while you see a ton of buttons and words and colors, don't pay any attention to that. All we're concerned about is shapes, fill stitches, and running stitches. So whatever digitizing software you... Oh, I didn't say hi, Misha. How does this compare to PEP software? Wilcom E4 is commercial level software. It's 10 times as expensive and it does a gazillion things, but you need to know what you're doing for the gazillion things. If you don't know about it, then you probably don't need it, is what I want to say. So I just thought you guys would like to see, you know, a commercial level. People have been talking about it. Oh, Ragnar, hello. Did I say hi to Alicia? And Misha, of course. I just did that. Yeah, hello. So we're talking about connections. So I did put a little satin stitch over the end. You don't need to. This is the final thing that we're going to do. And this is just what everyone else does. Now, if you look, you can see the triangles. They don't make them too much bigger. If I zoom in, they stay the same size. But right here on each side is a triangle, which means a trim. So that means it's going to stitch out this block. It's going to trim. Right here, this kind of dotted line, you guys should be able to see it. That's going to be movement, and then it's going to start here and do the next one. And then it's going to do the same thing for the second color. See all the trims? At the end of every single block, there is a trim. So we need to do better than that. If you look at this one, there's a trim at the beginning of the white, or sorry, end of the white. There's the start and stop for each color, and that's it. That's it. So I wanted to do stripes because a lot of people can figure out the first part, because remember last week we talked about hiding. So in this color, the red, it would be easy to hide the running stitch, connection stitch, or I call it a Suism, walking stitch. We walk right over to the next block. That's how you can remember that. So we want to go from one block and walk right over to the next block. But we can hide it under this one. So that part is easy. So when you're working on the second color, how do you do that? Well, that's what we're going to discover today. And let's move along here. I'm not used to E4 being so small. So easy, the first step is really easy. So we have everything going, and you could see it's just a run stitch, and you don't have to be neat about it or anything. It's just a run to another one. The only thing you have to make sure is that it does stay underneath. Some people say if it's a big space you can put a zigzag, but we're not going to worry about that. So it starts with the circle up here. This goes the same for Hatch, and it ends here, and this stitches out all in one piece, and that's the goal. So the second part, how do we do that? Well, we need to do a little more careful placement. So I want to show you guys over here on the right what that looks like in steps. So it's a block, and it's a running stitch, a block, a running stitch, block, running stitch. So that's how you know the connections have been made. If you're making your connections as you go along, which I highly recommend, and we will be talking about plotting everything out, that sort of thing after, baby steps, remember, that you digitize the block, and then you switch to running stitch, and then you digitize the next one, so you get in a habit of doing it. Some software, like the commercial software, Wilcom E4 that I'm using, you can just hit the space button and it switches automatically to the running stitch. And then you hit the space bar again and it goes back to whatever you were using. So it makes it easy to do it that way. So the second way of doing it, and sometimes I end up doing this way because I just start with a blank screen and I, attach everything after. It's just, it's the process. So when you do that, you just have to digitize these running stitches, but you got to make sure you put them in the right spot. If you get it in the wrong place, it's going to put another jump stitch and then again, so we don't want that. So for the second one, we are going to do pretty much the same thing as the first one, except for we're going to be way more careful about the placement. We want our connector, our running stitch here, we want it to be pretty close to being in line with the edge. And this is why I'm telling people too, that when you are digitizing, you need to know as much as you can about actual embroidery. So, because this won't work if you don't use the right stabilizer, and you have to deal with push-pull compensation. This could end up over the green or sticking out like a sore thumb. So that's why I've always said to you guys that embroidery is important, to know the embroidery. So this is how it's going to be put together. So I'm going to put the two pieces together over here, and just doing it that way. So I just did a pink block, you can see it over here, and a connection, trying to keep as close as I can. I mean, it's not 100%, but it's gonna hide it. Now, believe it or not, you may be thinking the green is stitching out first, and we hide all the connections underneath the pink, but these ones are gonna be sticking out. But you'll be surprised at how much you can't see them once you stitch them out. So it's a trick that you guys have stitched out before, and I'm going to show you guys that at the end. You have stitched it out before, you just maybe didn't realize it. So this is how this is going to stitch out. It's going to do the green, and then we have our hidden underneath the pink. The only time that going underneath is a bit difficult is if you have white on top. So if we were doing this and the pink bars were white, that green might just show through, and we don't want that. But you could always do this and it would look fine. Just sneak it down the line here. And it would look fine as well. So when you can hide them, hide them. When you can't, there's a couple of occasions like stripes that you can carefully place them. So if you notice on this one, there's a start for the green and a stop somewhere in there, and a start for the pink and a stop. So it's a big, huge difference. If you look at the one where I just put it, look at how many. Start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And I also want to point out that eliminating as many jump stitches by adding these connections is great. There's quite a few occasions where you just can't. And then insert a trim and, you know, do it that way. Because of layering, we always start when we're digitizing at the back. So on what we're working here with the green and pink, the green is the first layer and the pink is a second layer. And remember always to make sure everything overlaps slightly, and that'll help you combat your push-pull. See, when I moved that, it automatically put a trim in. So there we go. Jackie Cheek, hello. Would it be okay to do the white first in that case? If it's possible, yeah, absolutely. White, you won't be able to see much. But if you're stitching something out and you can see your running stitches and you're not going to be covering them up with, you know, satin stitches or something, then maybe you can switch it. It just depends. Like if I was making a scarf, for example, these kind of look like, you know, we could make it into a scarf, and you just simply didn't want to do the opposite way, then you can still hide it. So it just depends. But yes, if that's an option, that is certainly a really good option. And good question, for sure. So whatever you can do, it doesn't, you know, 100% all the time show, but if you had black and white, you'd have to think about how to put this together. So far, so good. The first layer going down, we're going to hide it under the second layer, and we don't have to worry too much about it. Now, the second layer, we are going to not make them invisible, but make them so we don't really notice it. Now, another place where this can be really handy is, let's see, over here. I just added the satin stitches. Let me turn on my true view. I just added the satin stitches just to show you for, like, you know, an applique or something. And in this case, you don't have to be perfectly neat about your secondary placement, because we're going to cover it up with satin stitches. So your precision amount is depending on what you're doing. You don't have to, you know, put an outline on everything that you're doing to cover up your jump stitches or traveling stitches, walking stitches, they're just running stitches, but however you want to put it, you don't have to. You'll be surprised again at how much you don't see this. And like I said, as long as your embroidery is good and you use the right stabilizer and everything's stable, you'll do pretty well on this. So this is yesterday. Last week we talked about what they were, and this is going to be, you know, kind of part one of how to use them, because I have stitched out, ooh, thank you, Jackie. I have stitched out quite a few things that would have trims everywhere, and it's like, oh, Would you shorten the stitch to help it lay on the edge? No. No. You could, but I don't. I do sometimes, depending on what I'm doing. I would recommend to most people, the majority of the people, not to change the stitch length unless you know what you're doing. In this part, it doesn't show, so I don't find any need to change it. You could. What I'd be afraid of is that the shorter stitches would show more. I have the screen on there. These connecting stitches would show more, because a shorter stitch, there's going to be quite a few more loops on it, and it might even pull it down a little bit more. But if it works for you, then yes. No, I don't, but that doesn't mean anything to anybody. You can do it if you want. And this is a great way to hide, your work, what you're doing. Say this is a candy cane. Remember, we did candy canes and digitizing, but I didn't go into the connections. This is why, because it's a little more complicated. You just change the colors. So can anyone think of that? Oh, you can see it. Never mind. All right. Here is a really good use of what we're talking about. So the green is the first one to stitch out. In this one, I'm using Wilcom E4. Doesn't even matter. All you guys need to be concerned about is the running stitch, where to find the running stitch in your software, that sort of thing. Because this is, you can do this in any digitizing software. So you can see, I can see the white on the outside. Let's go here. You can maybe see it a little bit better. So the green is the first one, and the connections are underneath, and the white connections are just up top. Now you may think, okay, well, I can see that a lot, Sue. What the heck? Same thing for here, the candy cane that I was talking about. Now on this one, the red stitches out first, and the green has this little connection. See how it's right on the edge? It may even look like a shadow or anything like that. But look, when it's stitched out, do you guys really see it? Like, you know what to look for, but is your eye completely drawn to these three little stitches going across? No? What about the green ones? You can barely see them. No? There you go. So it does work under the right circumstances. So I thought that was pretty cool. You guys have stitched it out. Everyone says, oh, your designs stitch out really well, and that's because of the connections. Sometimes it can take me hours to do a simple design because I take the time to connect everything. I could probably do 100 designs, Dawn as well, 100 designs in like an hour, just whip them off, not auto digitizing or anything. Anybody can do that as far as I'm concerned. However, doing it right takes a little bit of planning. So let's go through the mechanics of this. So I'm going to show you guys a technique and how and when to use it and why it actually works. And you really can't see it. No one would notice. And then we're going to just quickly do the technique. So let's go to get a shape. We're still always using shapes, which is awesome. So, and I'm just going to make a square. Actually, I'm going to go on to a new design here. Now remember, you can do this in any digitizing software. Sandy, thank you, Sue, for all you do. Love everything you're showing us. You guys are going to be so far ahead in everyone else in digitizing. I noticed at the beginning of the chat that I think it was Alicia said that she noticed some quote unquote mistakes where stuff could have been connected and wasn't. And that's awesome. That is music to my ears. This is what I want. You guys can tell that it's a good design or not a good design. So I'm just going to make a satin stitch. No, I want a fill stitch over here. A fill stitch square. I mean, it's nothing special. So this is how I would digitize it. So in E4, this green circle is where you start. This plus sign here, it's kind of small, but it tells you where you left off, which makes it absolutely delightful because I know if I put my running stitch here, it is going to connect. So yeah, so I am going to do that. So I'm just going to do a running stitch, and I don't know what we're making, but there we go. Now look, it connected automatically. So again, I know that the next rectangle is, and I'm just going to do a clone. So in Hatch 2 and Wilcom E4, it's a right click and drag. And that's how you do it. And look at that. I can move it up a little bit more. I see a trim kind of happened there, but that's okay. Now, what happens? You just keep going like that and everything's going to be connected. Now, if you don't have this fancy schmancy stuff to show you, you can go into your node mode or into your editing, and you can see exactly what I just did. The other thing, you could make your own markers for it and move them as you go along. But what happens if you're making something, remember to overlap, if you're making something like this, that is, oh, I need another color. Where's my other colors? My colors disappeared. They're not there. I probably have it covered up. But anyways, if you have something with a different color and we want to keep it going, like say for example, oh, my colors are way down there, way down here. Anyways, we'll work with what we've got. So if you're doing, say, this one, and we've got green, and we're going to overlap, and you go ahead and you create it, and you go, okay, I really like that. I mean, you don't have to start it, you don't have to start it again. You can add the connections in. And just to make this look a little bit better, it's because I have it so small, that's why. Anyways, never mind. So how are we going to do this? Let's copy and paste this and see if it'll go over to the other one. So copy and paste. Yeah, we got it. So I'm going to delete that. Sorry, technical. Jackie, thank you very much. So say you do it and like you haven't planned out the design, you can still connect it. So we're going to say the first one to stitch is our green. So this is how you do it. Now it's a bit tedious, but it's okay. So I can look at, where everything starts and stops, or I can just simply decide and move everything after. So I want the green to start and stop here. And what I do is for something, this small, I just go ahead and make the connections. Now that looks kind of complicated, but the first one, we're going to move up. Whoops, not that far up. We're going to move it. So the first block stitch out, remember that rhythm? First block connection, second block, and this connection's got to go up in between. Now it's all connected. You can do the, it's down. Oh yeah, it puts everything. Oh, I have a wide screen monitor, so it puts everything out. So I just did a closest join, and look, I got rid of all of my trims there. And then I would go ahead and do the pink ones. Now the green ones I just put on the edge, they'll be underneath. The pink ones, I can do the same thing, but we're going to be more careful. So then I would zoom in, and you can see where the pink ends. So somewhere, you know, even up here, we're talking pretty small, and we want it on the edge. Now I have these offset a little bit, and that's okay. We still want it on the edge of the green. And this would be your final step. You don't want to do all these connections and carefully place the ones that are on the outside and then move this, because then this is going to be going right through. You can't see it because it's green, but say it's this way. And you move stuff around, you have to remember to go back in and fix the connections. So, I mean, it's easy enough either way you do it. Sometimes I have it all planned out in my head, and we'll talk about the planning out. I get Sharpie markers and a piece of paper and plan it all out so I know what I'm doing, and then hit the digitizing. So, okay, do you guys have any questions? Putting a satin outline would cover any slight misalignment. It absolutely would, for sure. Most digitizing software has alignment in it. So it would be, except for I don't know where mine's gone because I squished it up. Is it here? Yeah, it's here. So they look like this. So if you want to align it, we always talk about using the tools that we have. And most software would have the alignment tool. Now, I would place all my rectangles and then align it and then make your connections, for sure. For sure. So that, hey Sue, nowadays I'm learning how to use PEDesign through your videos and just seeing your live session. You're really doing a great job. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We have fun. It's easier to do. But remember, instead of taking the time, you know, zoom in and align it and try to get, well, you have to overlap and try to get it perfect. Just save yourself time and frustration and use the tools that you have. So the software, the aligning tools, centering tools, not all software have this, but I use it all the time, and it's called Space Evenly Down, which it didn't work, but you know, it's just because of what I'm using it on. So connections before, after, depending on what you're doing. A lot of times for the mug rugs, I'm creating them from a blank screen. So I do all my creating and then connect everything. Not all the time. Sometimes if I'm sitting upstairs at night, I draw everything out and I'm ready to go. So any other questions? Someday I hope to own PEP software. It's kind of fun. I mean, you can have more than one software. I mean, you only need one. But like I said, I use all my different softwares for different projects, and I do use them all. So I have to figure out if Stitch Artist has an alignment tool. Yes, I'm pretty sure it does. I'll look it up afterwards. Depending on, I get so confused. I absolutely never remember about what level. I have all of the levels because I can't stand missing stuff, missing tools. Like for example, on Wilcom E4, I have all of the stuff, all of the elements, because I will use them all, and I do. So stripes, you can hide them and they look great. And imagine how beautiful even the back of Mr. Penguin looks, because there's not a whole bunch of trims and crap. It just stitches, or starts here and stitches all the way through. And I think it looks fantastic. So that's just another way of using your connections. Make sure, like in your brain, the way I do it, and you don't have to, this is just a Sueism, I want to walk over to the next one. I don't want to jump. I don't want to have, cut things off and go over to the next one. I just want to nicely walk over there. And that's how I remember, to make the connections. It's a nice little walk for the machine. And the only time, someone had asked me this, the only time I would never use a connection is if it's a huge, say, not a mug rug, but like 20 mug rugs, and one block is on one side and then on the other. That would warrant a trim in my book. You could walk it up around or whatever, but that's just too much. So yeah. Any other questions? Judy Quilt, you don't be down on yourself, because you are doing a fantastic job at digitizing. You put your heart and soul into the dime store, putting an attic on it, and it was wonderful to see it all come together. So it's awesome. It's just, work on it sort of thing. I always get stuck in the planning mode. I have an awesome idea for a 10th anniversary quilt, but I'm stuck on exactly how to do it. Well, let's chat, Misha. We could figure out something. I have a lot of good ideas, so I could help out for you. So, all thanks to you, Sue. Well, no, you're doing the work. You're just listening to me. And I think, like I said, that everybody should be learning this, and you'll be a much better digitizer because you learn with practice to see the connections before you make them. And again, I'm just going to say strongly that if you make your connections afterwards, that's okay too. I do probably 50-50. I'll have to ask Don what he does for that, but we do some of the connections afterwards. So as long as you have them, it does not matter how you do them. And also remember that you can't connect everything. Sometimes it just does not work, and you can't hide it, and you can't do anything with it. Then you trim it, smile, and move on to the next one. So there we go. Do I still have and need a good design code? Sure do. It's 10% off. It doesn't work on everything, but give it a try. It's AA. Oh, Misha, you beat me to it. You're so awesome, Misha. AA Sue 10. So, yay. So, there's not, you guys can practice with the, using the, just, it's blocks, squares, anything you want to do. And do it, this is your homework, by the way, and do it as you go along. So digitize the first green one, switch to running stitch, do the next one. You could copy and paste, or you could just do it again, and to the next one, so on and so forth. Or just do them and practice moving everything in the right order, and your reward will be you'll get rid of all these triangles, so which is cool, or whatever your software shows. So this one here, what a disaster. This one here, nice and tidy and efficient and faster to stitch out, easier on your machine, and it's awesome. Karina, I always watch it stitch in the program after I've digitized, so I don't miss any connections. Yep, that's exactly what I do. I probably, depending on what I'm making, I watch it and then fix a quote unquote mistake, and then save it, don't forget to save, and then watch it again, and I may or may not find something out. And then I usually walk away and come back and watch it again, and then I know it's good enough. So yes, that is great advice. Watch it stitch. So do your blocks, do your stripes, figure out which way you kind of feel more comfortable in, but make your connections and walk on over to the next color. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you guys like this video. I hope you guys will do your homework. They'll be as we're going along in our baby steps for these connections. There'll be more and more homework. So for now, it's easy. It's not a waste of time. It's easy, and you'll go, yes, no jump stitches. Darn, it's awesome. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks, everyone. Bye.